Well, hello there. Been about 2 weeks since the last video, I believe. I got this to start up somewhat reliably, the last video, and since then, you'll see still kind of a mess with the wiring. I put the alternator and the alternator bracket in place, and I sort of set you can't really see it because the light apparently stinks in here, but I set the power steering pump in place, but the problem is, if I try and put the pulley on, it hits the steering box, so that's not going to work. I sort of guessed that was going to happen, and that's why I haven't put on this whole assembly already. But I wanted to kind of see it just to make sure that that was the case. So, as expected, I do need to find a different method of mounting the power steering pump. So, yeah, that's that. The other thing is I need to come on over here. So I got this new battery cable, and I crimped on this connector. One of my friends has a battery cable crimper. Thanks, Greg. And he let me borrow it so I could crimp on that end on there. And then I'm going to run this new battery cable all the way under and over to the driver's side, so that I can actually mount the battery in the stock location. And then I can get rid of some of the battery cable sketchiness. So I'm going to do that, and then there's also a hose underneath the back of the car. It's a rubber line that goes to the fuel tank, and I need to replace that because it's an old rubber line and it's a little leaky. It's on the return line. So yeah, I just used one of the vent hoses coming out of the tank for the return line of the fuel system, and it is leaking where it goes back into the tank. So I'm going to fix that, and yeah, I think that's pretty much my plan for tonight. It's gonna be pretty simple. I'm staying classy tonight. Yeah, that's right, classy. So this is red wine. It's called Apothic Dark, I think. It's some sort of red blend with a Neshoba Valley winery glass. That's a winery that's local to me. But yeah, tonight's a wine night. Well, at least it is at this point. So yeah, drinking some wine, doing some wiring, fixing some battery cables, that sort of stuff. Yeah, so I guess I'm going to do these battery cables. Means I got to get underneath the car and probably get dirt in my eye. All right, let's do this. All right, so I am underneath the Lemans. And there's a couple things that I wanted to show you. Right here, you can see this is the return line. I'm on the passenger side under the, under the floor pan. Here's the transmission pan. So this is the return line, which you can see I securely connected with zip ties to an old return line. These two hoses here are vent hoses for the fuel tank, and I am obviously not using them anymore. So I just ran a new AN hose right over here, under here, and boom, to this one. So this vent hose, it's a bigger size. It's probably like 3/8, and it goes right back to the tank on the passenger side. So I basically just hooked an AN hose from the fuel rail all the way over here to this line. And then on the back of the car, where it goes into the fuel tank, there's a rubber hose that goes basically from this 3/8 steel line over into the fuel tank. And I'll show you that in a minute. But that is basically where there's some fuel leaking right now. So I need to fix that next. But while I'm under here, I'm also going to show you that right here, you can see I put my drive shaft in, and you can see where it used to sit. And this is pretty strange to me, and I don't really understand why. Because the transmission that I used to have in here was a short tail section turbo 400 for a Pontiac 350 or a Pontiac really anything. And this is a Chevy turbo 400 with a short tail shaft. So I expected the drive shaft to just slide right in perfectly and be all the same, but it's apparently not. So I'm not really sure what's going on here. Yeah, I can't really explain that. Like maybe the drive shaft didn't go in all the way on the other one either. I'm honestly just not sure. So I guess what I'm probably going to end up doing, reluctantly, is probably getting the drive shaft lengthened probably a good, I don't know, 2 inches maybe, so that it fully goes into the transmission. I mean, you can see it was probably only in the other transmission another, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch to inch. But I think it can actually go a lot more than that. It can probably go up to like here. So I'm going to, do all the measurements and everything and figure out how long the drive shaft needs to be. The drive shaft also has a big dent in it right here, which is not great. So it's probably not going to be the worst idea ever to have a new drive shaft put together for this car. So in the process, I'm going to have it made the right length. And then, of course, I'll get new U-joints for it because that is what people do. Yeah. So I guess that's it for now. You can kind of see underneath the car a little bit. It's tough to see what you're looking at. Transmission pan's disgusting because I didn't clean it. Up here you get some random wires and stuff. This is the feed wire to the fuel pump. I still have to like bundle it up and tie it to something. You can see the floor is a little rotted out here. I'll have to fix that at some point. Over here you get the fuel pump. I think I showed you this in the last video, but you can see it's all wired up, and I got the bracket holding it. It's really, really solid. Like you couldn't break that off if you wanted to. Over here, oh, you know what? In the last video, I mentioned that these were both fuel lines. Now this is over on the driver's side of the car, by the way. I mentioned that these are both fuel lines, and I was lying, flat out. So the big one is a fuel line. That is the original feed line for the fuel. The smaller one is actually the main brake line that goes to the back of the car. So that is obviously not a fuel line. So I did have to bend that up and out of the way a little bit. But yeah, that's it. Okay, so I guess we'll go to the back of the car and fix that fuel leak. All right, let's go. Well, hello there, exhaust pipe. I am going to try to show you exactly what's happening here. All right, you see that hose? So that's on the upper half of the passenger side of the fuel tank. And if you look down kind of below here, you can see everything over here is kind of wet with fuel. The other day I saw this thing was actually leaking. So although it looks gross obviously, but it looks dry, which is strange. But I think it just evaporated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of those two squeeze clamps, and I'm going to put a new hose in there, and then I'm going to put some actual normal new screw-on clamps in place. This is the return line, so it's like low pressure. So the fact that it's leaking with low pressure makes me think that maybe there's a small crack in the hose. It's obviously a really old hose, probably the original one. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that off, hope it doesn't pour gas everywhere, and then I'm going to put a new hose in its place. All right, let's do it. All right, so here's the hose. It's pretty gross. It's definitely very old, and it's very, very hard. So I'm guessing, I think my my thought of it having a crack in it is probably true. It might, oh, there it is. How about that? Hello. So yeah, that's where it was leaking. And the hose clamps that were on it were pretty much made of Swiss cheese. This one actually wasn't so bad, but the other one it basically broke off when I squeezed it. So yeah, that was junk. So I'm gonna make a new version out of a new hose that'll be much nicer. Ta-da! New hose, new clamps, and a little bit of gas on my face, but it's cool. So hopefully that'll leak less. And that will be pretty sweet. And we're back up top. Cheers. So next we're going to put, well, first of all, we can pull this sucker out. Come on. Ah. All right, we'll just drop it down to the bottom. All right. And then we got this big new fat cable here. So I'm gonna have to run this some clever way over to here that doesn't look like awful. So I guess I'm gonna do that next. Figure out some clever way of running it. Maybe, I don't know, behind the radiator or in front of the radiator or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. All right, so I'm gonna dig around, see what I can find. So I just threw together this positive battery cable. I just zip tied it to the bottom of the radiator support for now. Once I figure out how I'm gonna mount my radiator, I'll make some nicer brackets for it, and then it won't just be zip tied to the bottom radiator support. And then it comes up here, hooks into the power wires for the fuse box, and I put some shrink tube ring connectors on these wires so it's nice, and hooked it in. So there's the positive. Now I have to come up with something to do with this negative. I'm probably going to end up just replacing this, because this battery cable is good. It's from some other car, I have no idea what. But the cool thing is it's got 2 wires in it already. So I do have this one clamped on with vice grips. But what I think I'm going to do is I'll send one of these to the frame, one of these to the engine, and then I'll just put the different style battery connector on it. So I guess that's what's next. Check this one out. I even put some tape on it. We got wire loom, we got tape, and these battery connectors, you know, I thought that these were going to be complete crap because they were real cheap. They were like, I don't know, $5 or something like that. But they actually grip the wire really well. Like these are the things that you find next to the stick-on hood scoops for your Chevy Cavalier. But honestly, these things actually work really well as far as holding the wire tight. My guess is when I go to put it on the battery terminals are like not even going to fit, or something absolutely bananas is going to happen. But as of getting the wire, getting the wire in these crimpy things, that works, man. For being $5, these are not trash. All right, so now if you follow this ground over, I have one ground right here. I don't know if I'll keep it there, and then I have to figure out what to do with this end. I'll probably stick it on the frame somewhere. I'll have one ground going to the block, or the, and one going to the frame, and yeah, I guess that's it. So for now, I think maybe I'll put a ring connector on the end of this, and then I will be able to, technically I'll be able to mount the battery here and actually plug it in for real. Oh, and I'm going to take this ground wire off my tensioner over there because that has no business being there. And then I also have to mount my computer down here. Man, it's just a lot of little things to get to. I also got to do something with my heater hoses. I bought new heater hose but I never actually plugged them in and clamped them. So I got to do that too. All right, so I guess I'm just gonna kind of keep picking away at things, and we'll see where we get. And I'm just about to wrap up for today. So this is where we're at. Both battery cables are now totally ready to rock. I still have to make a bracket for this thing on the inner fender. I still have to put loom on all this junk. I found another ground wire that I have to hook up. So I think the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm probably going to I'm probably gonna find the fan wires from this so that I can hook them into my fan relays. And once I do that, then I'm gonna button all this stuff up for real. I'm gonna bury this computer somewhere under the inner fender. I'm gonna hook up a battery, and at that point things should just work. I know that right now if I plug a battery in, I can turn the key and things will work. It'll just fire right up and everybody's happy. So at that point I'll be in pretty good shape. It's just back to that drive shaft thing that I told you about earlier. The alternator doesn't have a power wire going to it, so I'll have to do that. And then I gotta figure out the whole power steering thing. I think for now I'm probably just gonna remove the power steering pump, and I don't know, I'll probably search online for some different options of things I can do there. I know that you can buy relocation kits for the alternator and the power steering pump, but they're like $170 I want to say, which I'm not real excited to spend. So we'll see what happens. Until next time, be sure to subscribe, tell a friend, and we'll see you later. All right.